Hi, I'm Sam, and I'm here with Usama for Bits. Most of the time, when something goes wrong at a company, the story ends at the most obvious answer. The vendor failed, the team was stretched thin, the market shifted, and everyone just kind of moves on. But here's the thing, if you stop at the obvious answer, you haven't actually solved anything. You've just made peace with the symptom. Today, we're talking about a technique that forces you to keep going until you find the real root cause. And in cybersecurity especially, the difference between stopping at answer 1 and getting to answer 5 can be the difference between a close call and a headline. So Usama, before we get into how this works in security specifically, can you just explain the 5 whys? Because on the surface, it sounds almost too simple.
Hello, Sam. Hello, everyone. Sure, the 5 whys basically is a concept that Toyota came out with in order to identify a root cause of a problem, I'm sure, around making cars. And in cybersecurity, we started using it to identify, or at least to get to the bottom of an incident or an issue that we have, aka the root cause. And it doesn't have to be 5 whys. It could be 4, it could be 6. It's whatever that's needed to get to the root cause.
So it's not about finding who to blame, it's about finding what broke.
Exactly, because most of the time, organizations, there's a lot of layers, a lot of technologies, processes, and people. And really, if at the end of the game, you just want to try to find somebody to blame, it's a terrible idea because it's never just a person. It's always a combination of things.
So how does this apply into the cybersecurity space?
Well, for instance, when investigating incidents, this is where the 5 whys comes in. For instance, we would say a server was breached or hacked and ransomware was installed on it. Well, why did that happen? The server was not patched. Well, why wasn't the server patched? The server team in charge of patching didn't know that it existed. Why did the server team in charge of patching didn't know it existed? Because the people doing the acquisition didn't include this network in their documents. Why didn't the people that are scanning the networks and doing the acquisition realize that the server is there? Well, the process that they had was kind of hurried up because somebody in management told them to speed things up, and they did speed things up and forgot to include all the networks. So this is just an example of how it happens, and it's a lot of reasons. At the end of the day, here in this example, our focus should be more on the acquisition side and the process there. It wasn't about server patching or the patching team. They had nothing to do with it, per se.
Yeah, so it's less about the person who made the mistake, but more of like the process that allows them to make that mistake.
All the time.
So is this the employee's fault or something else that's bigger?
So this one is a big deal. Look, at the end of the day, if you're going to start looking for employees to blame, you're going to create a culture that is definitely counter to cybersecurity. Why? Because you need your employees to participate. You need your employees to be vested in and not scared. Some employees would have access to the logs, and if they're going to cover their tracks, that's not going to work. So that's the first thing. Don't play the blame game. It's not going to work. The second thing is it's a combination of items really when something fails. So let's say an accountant, male or female, received an email that's a phishing email. They clicked on it and they entered their credentials, and now the hackers have access to your financial systems. Well, let's look at this. Let's investigate this. It's not that, yes, the person, the accountant, may have made a mistake. Maybe the accountant was not trained. Why didn't the technology stop the link from working? Why didn't the operations center detect it? Why didn't the security controls and the logs alert? So in this instance, you could say it's the person's fault, but it doesn't work. That is not a root cause. And anyways, if you start fishing for that in your organization, you're going to create a very negative, toxic culture, and it's not going to improve your cybersecurity one bit.
So as my last question, what should people avoid when they're trying to get to the root cause of the problem?
I would say there are 3 major obstacles to getting to the root cause usually. One is confirmation bias. It's where you believe something and now you're asking the whys in that chain because you want to get to what you think is true. The second is blaming a person. Really forget about it. Don't do it. If you're going to try to look to blame a person, it's going to have a real negative impact on the culture, organization. It's not going to help you in this situation. It's not going to answer the whys correctly. And the third is a single chain thinking. For instance, you would start on a chain and you think that that's the only one. Be very careful around that. Be open to other people coming up with different reasons, different whys, and chasing those to get to the root cause. A lot of times, organizations try to look for the whys and stop early or stop late or stop at a person. Terrible ideas, all of them.
And sometimes the cause could be a combination of things, not just one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Usama, and thanks to those listening. We'll see you next time on Bits.